Today we're going to take a look at the Apex Pro 10 keyless keyboard from SteelSeries, the 2023 edition with OmniPoint 2.0 switches and a couple of other functionalities and a rapid trigger functionality which has been introduced in the latest firmware update. We're going to check the build quality, the software functionality and what you can do in the keyboard in general and whether the implementation of rapid trigger is any good. So when it comes to build quality, the keyboard is made mostly out of two materials. Beneath the keycaps you have airplane grade aluminum, which supposedly is very rigid and helps with the stiffness of the keyboard. I have to say that if you try to flex the keyboard in any way, it doesn't move at all. Other than that, we have a plastic bottom and a plastic frame around the keyboard, all in black color. And the aluminum is also black and it's a matte black. No glossy finish, so I think it's really good for keeping the fingerprints in check. You will have no issues keeping the keyboard clean. Next we have the keycaps. The keycaps are double shot PBT. They have a really nice, really clean font, which is also a see-through font, which lets a lot of RGB light through. So even in a brightly lit room, you will be able to see the RGB effects very clearly. The keycaps also have a matte finish and a very nice and pleasant texture. So let's do a quick sound test right now. So when I first tried the keyboard, it made me think that it's really loud and really hollow sounding, and a quick look inside confirms my suspicion that there is no dampening foam inside. But this is a very easy mod to do and I'll show you how to do it. First of all, you need to take apart the keyboard. In order to do that, you need to unscrew 11 or 12 screws that are placed around the keyboard, and there's a couple also in the middle of the keyboard which you also need to take out. When you're done removing them, you can just pick up the top part and set it aside. As you can see, the switches are soldered to the board, so there is no easy way to remove them. This is not a hot swappable keyboard. In order to make the keyboard sound better, you will need 1 or 2 sheets of EVA foam. They are pretty easy to find, especially in art shops, and I'll link an example down below. Just be sure not to pick up too thick foam, as then you might not be able to fit it inside. The one I have here is 2 mm thick, but if I had to buy a new one, I'd probably get 1.5 or even 1 mm just so it doesn't press too much against the PCB. Now all you need to do is press the foam onto the bottom cover to get the shape, cut it out, put it inside and puncture the places where screws are. On the right side of the keyboard, be sure to leave out place for the screen. If you put any foam underneath it, it will bulge and might damage the screen and won't be completely flush with the top part. After you're done, all you need to do is put the keyboard back together and you're done. This is what the effect before and after the foam is. I'm not sure if it goes through well in a YouTube video, but I can definitely hear the difference. The sound after the mod is slightly less hollow and the keyboard overall is slightly less loud, and I started to really enjoy the sound of the keyboard. At the bottom of the keyboard you will also find a hidden compartment which hides the keycap puller, which by the way is completely useless. I had a lot of difficulties trying to pull the keys using the included keycap, so I strongly suggest you get something proper like the wire keycap puller, which also prevents you from damaging your keycaps. It's much better, definitely. At the bottom you will also find 2 sets of feet which help you angle the keyboard to your preference. Once the feet snap into place, they hold the keyboard really well. There is no accidental movement. They will not fold in on you when you're gaming. They do their purpose really well. Another interesting trend I see is the inclusion of a screen on a keyboard, and we have one here as well. It's only available on the 10 keyless or a regular version of the keyboard because the mini version is just too small and there's no place for a dedicated screen. And this screen serves 2 purposes. Either you can display your own animation or a graphic on it, or you can also use it to navigate the built-in menu in the keyboard. It allows you to change the brightness of the keys, but also allows you to change the actuation level of the keys, but it does it for all of them, and also change or actually enable and disable the rapid trigger functionality. But again, for all the keys you can't set it using the built-in menu for dedicated or individual keys. you have to do it for all of them. And just be careful if you have a profile activated, because if you start changing the actuation level or rapid trigger functionality, it will apply it to all of the keys and will override your profile settings. In order to access the menu, you need to hold the square button for around 3-4 seconds. After that, the menu becomes active and you can use the scroll wheel to navigate it. Press the scroll button to accept and square button to go back in the menus. I am, however, really surprised that you are not able to change the RGB settings using the built-in menu and the screen. It would be very comfortable and you wouldn't have to use the software. But unfortunately, this is not the case, and you have to install SteelSeries GG software in order to change and keep the changes on your keyboard when it comes to RGB, which I think in 2023 is just really lazy. I was really surprised that this is the case here, and I did contact SteelSeries support, and unfortunately they did confirm that in order to keep the custom RGB changes working all the time, make the keyboard display your preferred color, you need to have the software running in the background. You can't even apply the changes to the profile you set to the keyboard. It only applies the changes to actuation and rapid trigger, and doesn't remember the changes you made to RGB. So this is really a bummer in my eyes. I was really hoping that I could just set the changes, uninstall the software and forget about it. But SteelSeries want you to use their software all the time. And if you don't mind using their software, if it's okay for you to use any kind of software from the manufacturer, that's fine. You'll be completely fine. You'll be able to control all of the RGB aspects from your PC. So like I mentioned before, this keyboard supports rapid trigger, and any Apex Pro series keyboard that has the magnetic switches, the OmniPoint switches, does support the rapid trigger. But in order to do that, you will need a software update. In order to enable this on your keyboard, you need to connect it to your PC, download SteelSeries GG software, and do a firmware update on the keyboard. After a couple of minutes, when it's done installing, you can go to the Engine tab, select the Apex Pro 10 keyless, and then you can configure rapid trigger as well as other features like activation point and so on. SteelSeries allows you to either have the rapid trigger function on all keys or selected ones. In order to apply it to all keys, just click on select all and it will automatically highlight all the keys for you. Then on the left, press the square next to rapid trigger lighting icon. There you can also set the mentioned actuation point. If you don't want rapid trigger on all buttons, just click the select tab and either control click the buttons or just drag a selection line across the ones you want to reconfigure. As you could probably see, not all buttons support the rapid trigger function. The escape key, the function keys, which we have at the top, the shortcut keys, which we have on the right, and the arrow keys are not magnetic switches, so they will not support rapid trigger and also will not support like custom actuation point. They're classic mechanical switches. And I think it makes sense, first of all, to keep the price of the keyboard in check, but second of all, you don't want a rapid trigger on the keys you will rarely use, like the function keys or the arrow keys. You mostly want them on the movement keys and probably action keys like the F or E or Q and other that could benefit from you spamming the button. After you do the firmware update, there's also one more way to change the settings, and as I mentioned before, you can just do it straight from the menu. So overall, I really like this keyboard. I think it's a great addition to anyone playing online competitive shooters, MOBAs or MMOs, as the rapid trigger functionality does really make a difference, especially if you're moving a lot, if you're spamming a lot of buttons. The build quality is good. I mean, it would be better if it was more metal included, but I guess then the price would just be absolutely over the top. I don't like that you can't change the RGB settings using the built-in menu or built-in software. It is a bummer, but again, if you don't mind running software from SteelSeries, then go ahead and you'll be completely fine. I really think SteelSeries did a good job implementing the rapid trigger feature here. You can assign it to all buttons, you can assign it to some of the buttons, and that's a great customizability. Also, you can change the actuation level of the buttons from 0.2 millimeters, I believe, up to 4.0, which is just completely at the bottom, which is also great. And again, you can do it just for the main buttons, which are magnetic. And yeah, I'm very curious how the keyboard and the new OmniPoint 2.0 switches will work over time and whether they will see any degradation in performance. So stay tuned if you want to see a long-term review of this keyboard after 3 months or maybe after 6 months, we'll see. And yeah, that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Laser and I'll see you in the next one.